please. Okay, so here we go. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Yes, hi. I can't believe I'm going to say this for the first time, but happy Intersectionality Awareness Week.
Oh, thank you, and happy Intersectionality Awareness Week to you and Katie.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We are finally lifting this big campaign off the ground. This is the first campaign that ParaPride is launching, that is developing. So we are especially excited about that. So hello, everyone who is following us. This panel is pre-recorded, but it will be going out on the 12th of May. I am Daniele. Some of you may know me. I am the co-founder of ParaPride. And ParaPride is an empowerment charity. We advocate for the visibility, education, and awareness of disabled LGBTQ plus people. Just briefly, a little bit of background. The need for an organization like ParaPride came from a need to address the lack of inclusion for disabled people within the LGBTQ plus community, and a need for more accessible LGBTQ plus spaces, as well as a need to promote body positivity and being able to celebrate that and to own that. So we are a fairly young organization. We are a growing organization. We are entirely run by volunteers, and our lived experiences are at the core of our charity values. So ParaPride is proud to launch Intersectionality Awareness Week, which will be starting on the 12th of May, 12th to the 18th of May, 2025. It is a yearly campaign, a yearly awareness campaign, and the aim of Intersectionality Awareness Week is to reflect and to share and to educate the wider society about intersectionality or intersectional theory, which is the concept of intersectionality theory was originally developed by and introduced by Kimberley, which is an American civil rights advocate. And it is originally linked to how people experience the overlapping forms of discrimination, disadvantage based on their attributes, such as the ethnicity or race or socioeconomic status, gender identity, disability, and so on and on. And throughout the years, it developed a lot. And today we continue to identify ourselves in this in intersectionalities. So with Intersectionality Awareness Week, we want to celebrate our intersectional identities by promoting a message of empowerment and unity. And we do this by sharing our strengths and our struggles and our lived experiences, because ultimately, you know, that's where we build, that's where our strengths and struggles are built. And throughout the week, we will be delivering a range of online activities like podcasts and panel discussions, focusing on different communities like the disabled community, the immigration community, and so on and on. And every single day of the week will be full of very interesting events. And Katie, can I pass on to you to, well, firstly, to introduce yourself and then to also tell us a little bit more about what to expect, you know, in the week of Intersectionality Awareness Week. And of course, you know, after that, we will be allowing Miss Kim to introduce herself as well.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Katie Hudson, and I'm co-chair of ParaPride, and I've been working with the charity since before the pandemic, and that has seen some kind of interesting evolution of what ParaPride does, including a big annual event where we have people from the disabled LGBTQIA community attend and perform and really showcase some of the amazing and unique talents that people have. And one of the reasons why we sort of started to think about Intersectionality Awareness Week was because we were seeing that, you know, a lot of the people who attend and perform and participate in that event are from a range of different intersectionalities. They are generally people who are, yes, they're disabled and LGBTQIA, but they also have many other layers of diversity and things that they experience on a day-to-day basis because of kind of who they are as a unique individual. So we wanted to really start to double click a little bit more on that concept of intersectionality and work with other charities that were also intersectional, and start to develop this idea a little bit more of perhaps intersectional communities working together can have a greater voice, working in an aligned way, and raising up this issue and raising awareness around the topic of intersectionality, which we've also observed is becoming more of a concept that a lot of internal kind of diversity and inclusion departments and businesses are starting to recognize, community organizations and public services are starting to recognize it a bit more. But because we come from those communities, we wanted to talk a bit more about it. So we are, as Daniele was saying, we are hosting a number of different sessions throughout the week, and the week is divided up, roughly speaking, between ParaPride starting on the first day, talking about the disabled and LGBTQIA+ community and having representatives from that community, and they're going to be posting content and adding their voice. The next day is focused on the Black, Asian, and Indigenous person experience. We have Wednesday focused on refugee and asylum seekers. Thursday is going to be focused on the trans community, and we'll wrap up the week talking about inclusion, access, and safe spaces for everyone. And we find this, obviously particularly topical right now, and want to make sure that we focus on all the really fantastic things about our intersectional communities, and help to enable allies to be more kind of aligned with us, understand the kinds of experiences that we have and the great things that we have to bring in the community as well. So with that, I'll start with the first question that we have, because we have a few things that we're gonna each comment on, so that you can kind of hear us the kind of us kick off this concept with hearing a little bit about our own experiences and what intersectionality looks like to us. So I might start by asking Ms. Kimberley our first question about what does intersectionality mean to you?
What does intersectionality mean to me? Intersectionality is quite personal to me. I've always been this person who was always for the underdog, because I always feel that the underdog deserves to shine once given a chance, and that underdog can come from every intersection, I should say. It means to me a place, a time where we can all just be one, coming together, learning from each other. And when we learn from each other, I have this philosophy that if we really took time to step out of our bubble and talk to someone from a different religion, race, sexuality, gender, whatever, you just might find something that you have in common. You can also learn about people's struggles and learn why, different cultures have these cultures. There's so many times, I hear, oh, those people are doing this, or oh, those people are doing that, but we never really take time to find out about why these people have this this sort of way of living. So intersectionality means to me everyone together in harmony.
Great, thank you. And Daniele, do you want to answer that question as well and share with us what you think about what intersectionality means?
Yeah, sure. Well, to me personally, like I mentioned earlier, intersectionality is historically associated to how we experience overlapping forms of discrimination in life and disadvantages. And for me personally, I think for a long time, before I became familiar with the notion, with the theory of intersectionality, I found it very easy to kind of like feel a bit lost on the different layers of intersecting identities that I live, and So I should also mention like my intersections. You know, I am a disabled man. I am a gay man. I am originally from Italy. I live in London, but my ethnic background is from Eritrea. So I am a proud person of color. My disability is physical. I am a double lower leg amputee. I walk on prosthetic legs. And, you know, like I think today, knowing what I know about intersectionality and this theory and the meaning behind it, you know, I think that I feel that I'm in a more advantaged position in the sense that I have more information available about the diversity in society and the feelings of empowerment and pride that come with our diversities, with my diversity specifically, and so. And so, you know, you know, I can go along with this. You know, there have been times in life where I felt safer not to disclose some of my identities because I didn't feel that the people around me would, you know, would necessarily see them in a positive light. And you know, I kind of like had to suppress that feeling, although, you know, deep down I am proud of all of my identities, you know, and I think that. And I think that, you know, like thanks to getting to know this notion a little bit more, I feel safer to be able to wear them with pride. So knowing that today we have a name for it, intersectionality, well, not today because it hasn't been invented today. You know, it had been developed by Kimberley back in 1989. So it has been present since then. But today we have a lot more information about it. It's definitely more known. You know, I think that I feel, like I said, I feel safer to wear the different layers of intersectionality with pride and finally, you know, live my true selves and share the knowledge that I have through my lived experiences with everyone else, and especially, you know, through Intersectionality Awareness Week. It feels pretty amazing to be able to finally do that, you know, finally having to, you know, feeling safe to uphold these aspects of our lives and being able to embrace them and celebrate them, you know. So yeah, I think that is, you know, what intersectionality means to me, you know, like pride, empowerment, beauty, strength, all of like these really amazing feelings.
That's great. I mean, there's certainly aspects of what you both have said that really resonate with me. And I guess kind of my own version of that is, you know, as Daniele was explaining his background. So I'm neurodiverse, and I also have several long-term health conditions. And I'm from the LGBTQI community. So I'm bi, and I feel that I'm non-binary, even though I present as a cis female. So, you know, I've always felt like I've had a lot of things going on, and being neurodiverse in particular, I felt very much like I kind of don't fit into normal life, if you will, at school or traveling on public transport or at work. And that the world kind of isn't built for me. And I can really resonate with other communities, I think, that have that experience for a variety of other reasons, but just feel like the world was not built for them. And I also thought this initiative was really important to start looking more at intersectionality, because I felt generally in terms of how the world reacts to me, I'm judged on the basis of maybe one dimension of who I am. So I appear to be female, for example. So I might walk into a situation and experience one thing as a result of that. And then if I'm open and share with somebody that I'm neurodiverse, then that may elicit a different reaction or situation, depending on, you know, whether I'm in a social environment or at home, at school, and all of those sort of intersections come along with judgment from the people that you're around. Sometimes they're people that know you well, and hopefully is not too much of a negative judgment, but as Daniele was saying, sometimes it also is quite negative and has impacted all of us, it sounds like, in different ways. That, you know, it's been both challenging as well as, you know, something that's been really positive. Like I think all of us are quite proud of our differences and our unique personalities and unique kind of things that we bring to the world around us, but it can be challenging as well. So, and actually, that's probably a good segue into the second question, where I'd love to hear from our other speakers, maybe starting with Daniele this time, about how you find your own identities sort of intersect and what challenges that brings on a daily basis, as well as kind of maybe how you overcome some of those challenges.
Yeah, so I like that question. I'm glad that we have that in there, because it came up before, and like I said before, like my ethnicity and my LGBTQ plus identities, these are aspects of me that have always been present in my life, since I was born. But my disability is acquired. And this means that I have become disabled later on in life. Like I mentioned briefly earlier, I am a lower leg amputee after having had meningitis back in 2016. And that was, of course, a very challenging time in my life, and for family and loved ones around me. But this was a big life-changing event, and it came with many challenges. But it also shifted my focus in life, to other things, other things that I give value to. And one of the biggest things that kind of like had an impact on me after this, after I've become disabled, is wanting to create a positive social impact through sharing my lived experiences. So because of that, since once I have become disabled, I knew it was going to be a very challenging life, but I was very determined to be able to feel empowered by my difference, and that kind of like became my biggest motivation to to overcome difficulties and to overcome struggles that I was experiencing then, and that I continue to experience today, because it's an ongoing journey. And so in terms of like the challenges, I think that the biggest challenge, there are many different challenges that I come across, but I think probably the biggest one is the misrepresentation of disabled people, and that is often portrayed as the community in need of special care and in need of special assistance, and and that is what mainstream media frequently kind of like continues to push out there. And then, so there's that. And then there is the example of the Paralympic Games, for instance. People think of the para-athletic athletes, and this perception changes completely. People start to see a much more stronger and a more resilient aspect of our community. And as far as mainstream society and mainstream media is concerned, there's nothing else between these far two extremes. But we know that there is a lot between these two extremes. There's us, like everyday people. And, it's really worth continuing to highlight and to remind everyone that disability is a very broad term. And, there are so many different types of disabilities. Some are visible, some are non-visible, and some are much more complex than others, but disability is not what we want to be seen as. It's not what we only want to be seen as. And so I think that the biggest challenge that that I find is to promote the idea that we are only disabled by the barriers in society and not by our disabilities. And this is something that we continue talking about through the work that we do at ParaPride, showcasing our empowered, the empowerment of our community, the positivity of our community, and but it continues to be a big struggle to put that message out there and to make it accepted by everyone.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, well said. Yeah.
And what about you, Ms. Kimberley? What about kind of opportunities, challenges, things that are actually things you use to overcome any challenges?
Being a Black, mixed race, Polish, Jewish heritage, trans woman has been challenging all my life from every angle, from just walking down the street to going to church, riding in the car. It's always been a struggle, but I have learned that that was my destiny. And I kind of feel that my being on this planet is to sort of help with educating people, but not going out of my way preaching to them like a Bible basher, but just existing. And I've learned that as a Black trans woman, or just a person of color in general, whether you're trans or cis, there is always going to be a struggle in society. And that is just a fact. As you know, we're going through what many trans peoples and our allies see as a very painful time at the moment. Yes, it is a struggle, but as an older person who has come from two communities, I have generational trauma from both communities. My great-grandparents escaped Hitler in the 30s and 40s, moved to Mississippi, and of course, my Black heritage side went through slavery. And I will never forget, my mom used to always say to me, you know, it's going to be hard, but what you have to do, and this is very important, to create your own joy. And when I think about that, I think about my African side, how much has come from the joy that they have made. Music, gospel music, country music, jazz, all these delicious meals. And you know what I think is really quite interesting, really quickly, I just want to say, when I was growing up, my great grandmother, Lula, who I named Lula after, she used to cook all the time for every holidays, something called chitlins. Now, a lot of people don't know what chitlins are. I think they're absolutely disgusting. And I remember we had a dog that every time my grandmother would cook these, the dog would bark. Anyway, chitlins are basically pig intestines. Now, during slavery, the masters would throw out what they didn't want. So the slaves were treated inhuman. But today in America now, chitlins are a delicacy.
Yep.
Which I find so interesting. So much that was seen as bad is now seen as good. I remember my mom was telling me about these vegetables. I can't think of the name at the moment, but they were really quite prevalent in the Black community. But now everyone's in America is eating it. They're called collard greens, and they discovered how these greens they're so good for you. So creating that joy, turning that negative into a positive is something I have really learned to do. And I have also learned that you must try and be positive. You must surround yourself around people who are not only positive, but people who actually lift you up and you lift them up. When you see a friend who's you know, a good friend or just an acquaintance, you know, always greet with a smile. I think it's very important because you are putting that positive energy into the universe. I'm getting really like witchy here. But no, but I really do believe that it's all about keeping yourself positive because we cannot control society. There's always going to be people who are undesirables. There's always going to be racist. There's always it's always going to be a challenge, especially coming from a marginalized community, whether you're Black, queer, disabled. I mean, the list goes on. That's how I overcome it. What challenges? Did I cover everything?
You've covered quite a wide array of things. Yeah, definitely. You definitely answered the question. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to cover.
No, that's about it.
When it comes to challenges, we can just keep talking about challenges for days.
Yeah, but you know, I have accepted that life will be a challenge. You know, this thing that's happening right now with the trans people, a lot of these young people are so you know, they're just like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. But no, I think a lot of people don't understand, especially the Caucasian people who've never been oppressed. They don't realize, some of them, that this is actually a fight for the rest of your life. So you have to find peace within. So you can go out into the world and they can just throw everything at you. But it doesn't matter because you walk with pride and you hold your head up high.
Yeah, no,
and
absolutely.
You hold your head up high. They may not like you, but I promise you one thing, they're gonna respect you.
Yeah, no, I think that's really great. And like I kind of, a lot of things you said have really resonated with me as well. And because I didn't mention in my intro of myself that like some of my family were Ashkenazi Jews, and my grandmother was the only one to get out from the Holocaust. Everyone else was taken to the concentration camps.
Wow.
So, you know, like I have that generational trauma, and you know, but you probably wouldn't think that or know that unless I said anything
Unless
to you
you
about
said
it.
it, yeah. So
And I usually don't bring it up with people that I don't know very well, but
I'm glad you said something. You know, when I was growing up, my grandmother didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Want to talk about it.
Yeah.
But, you know, generational trauma is real. You know, I went to see my daughter in a play. She's my queer daughter. She did Fiddler on the Roof. I never sang Fiddler on the Roof. And at the end of the play, I was in so much tears. I was just in flood of tears.
Yeah.
Only to find out after, not only they were Polish Jews, but they came from where my great grandparents came. But I didn't realize that until at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And well, I mean, I have a similar experience when I see a community represented that kind of touches me kind of at in the core. And you know, like the representations of diversity still tend to be fairly one-dimensional, but you know, there are so many, I guess, but even potential triggers if you want to go that far with it, if there's trauma involved with it. And I remember growing up and really that part of my family not really being talkked about very much. So I've always been very curious about it and wanting to know more. But unfortunately, my grandmother, who was the one remaining survivor from the family, died when I was quite young. So I never really got to ask her those questions. But and it was also kind of confusing for me when I was younger about like understanding why we weren't brought up with, you know, to follow the Jewish faith, for example. And the fact that my mom came from more of a Christian background. So that's something that I felt at least like I have sort of multiple versions of my own reality, even within topics like that, within religion or like generally my belief system. So so yeah, I mean, I think for me anyway, like some of the challenges I experience, or I would say that the aspects of my intersectionality that are most sort of on the surface are probably around neurodiversity, and how that impacts me when I'm trying to get through my day to day. And like I was saying earlier, like sometimes it's quite challenging to be, for example, in an open plan office environment where there's lots of movement and noise and light and other sorts of things. So, you know, I've had to learn to adapt to that and learn to adapt the way in which I work. And more recently, employers have been live to that a bit more and happy to hear about it. But I mean, even in the last 5 or 10 years, invisible disabilities and things like neurodiversity weren't really taken seriously, you know, as a concern for you know, the duty of care that employers have, or you know, thinking about public spaces and layouts, and having quiet areas, for example, in public spaces. So I'm really glad that that's starting to become more known, but I'm also very aware of, you know, that there are still challenges out there. There's clearly still challenges with in terms of communities that if you're not part of our community, maybe you don't fully understand what it's like to go through daily life, and people who just decide to hate others or exclude them. And like you were saying, like what's going on at the moment just brings that up again even more, and just reminds me that you know, people that are kind of my brother's kids might be impacted by something if they're neurodiverse, or if they're, you know, from an LGBTQI community. I don't want them to be impacted even worse than I was when I was kind of their age and coming up and becoming an adult. And I'm concerned that they might be. So with the general environment going on right now. So, you know, I found ways to cope myself, but I think the wider environment changing around us does present new and different challenges, and the potential to at least suffer discrimination, if not hate crime, that you know, I find very challenging. So
you know what I you know, I think that another thing that really kind of helps me as well, and one thing that has really helped me lately is going through this spiritual awakening, but learning about who I am. I think I thought I knew who I was, but you know, having ADHD and dyslexia was something that, you know, I pushed in the back of my head, but now I've learned to how to accept it and also celebrate it. And what's so good about, you know, launching intersectionality awareness, I think is going to, you know, for these really young people that were like myself, will be able to understand that we all are different, and we should always be proud of whatever, you know, whoever and whatever we are.
no, absolutely. And regardless of what's going on around us, you made an excellent point about just holding your head high,
Yes.
And knowing that you're an amazing, unique person, whether others can see that or not. It
Yes.
doesn't matter.
That's hard though. That's hard. That you
Yes.
know, it's so easy for me to say that, but I think it's good for other people to hear. But you still, you know, I don't think you can just do that right away. It took time. It may take, you know, it took me a long time. It really did take me a long time, but I got there through trying, and also meeting people like yourself as well is very important to hear your stories, because that gives me life, basically. And that's what hopefully we can give to people who are feeling insecure about who they are.
Yeah, definitely. And like I would like to share a message of love to everyone out there who's listening to this and who may be kind of part of our community. And
Yeah.
you know, certainly everything we're saying here, I hope you feel kind of only positive vibes really about who
Yeah.
you are, and that you're proud of who you are. But like you said, we also appreciate that, you know, sometimes that can be really challenging when the world around you isn't cooperating. But yes. I might move us on to our last question, just so that, you know, we can kind of wrap up on a topic around maybe just thinking about what allies can do to help marginalized communities, especially if somebody's kind of multiply marginalized. You know, what do you think that we can share as like a piece of advice about being an ally, but maybe not overstepping the boundaries. Maybe I'll start with Daniele.
Yeah, thank you. Again, I think it's really important to talk about this because we all especially through Intersectionality Awareness Week, we are aware that we all coming from like marginalized community groups, and and some of us, some of our marginalized identities can interact or can intersect with each other, but the main thing is that we are all allies of each other's marginalized groups, and just like what we've been doing through this event, and the conversations that we've been having, and sharing our struggles and our difficulties, but also sharing our sense of empowerment and pride and strengths. I think it's really important to hear these experiences, because this is also part of the process of communicating towards our allies. But I think that that only works as if we are willing to listen. I think that listening is key when it comes to like allyship and being there for each other. Listening carefully and asking questions, and being open to understanding and communicating to one another, and also having that sense of empathy. And we can learn not only from the struggles, but also from our stories of success and stories of empowerment. And just it seems like an obvious thing to say, but don't assume be open for a dialogue. And I do come across people who assume they know everything, and I actually, if you just take a moment to listen, because we're all individuals, and we all have different experiences. It's really important to have an open, pretty much like we're having today, and what we're sharing with everyone else who is listening to us today. And I think that language is always like a very good example in these cases, because we're always, particularly in the queer community, the disabled community, and different marginalized communities, we are always encouraged to use the right language and inclusive language, and inclusive behaviors. But when it comes to interacting with, say, like the disabled community or other marginalized communities, like many people have confessed that they are so worried about saying something that is not politically right, politically correct, or and they are so worried about saying the wrong thing that they say nothing at all. And and this is preventing communication. It's preventing it's not promoting inclusion, and that's definitely what we don't want. I think that if in doubt, I think that people should definitely be feel comfortable to ask questions, ask open questions. And I think that, like I mentioned, allyship between marginalized community is really important, and we need to make sure that we feel comfortable enough to just, if we don't know about something, just ask openly, and have that confidence that we will be informed of the right of the right thing from the right people, from the right communities. Because if we are there for each other as marginalized groups, then we will become a much stronger and a much more resilient community. So yeah, I think that's really, really important.
And what about you, Ms. Kimberley?
I
have a cat. So it's getting into my picture.
Sorry?
I was just going to say, if for anyone who's just seen a shadow go by, I had a cat be part of our call. But anyway, please go on.
I had a dog.
We like cats. We like your cat.
I know, I have a dog lying at my feet. So listen, and to Daniele, I have to echo this thing about being an ally. I kind of struggle with the word ally these days, because I think a true ally is going to listen to you. I find that some allies are only allies when it suits them. And I also think some allies, they want to have that thumb over you. And you said something, where they want to, basically tell you about you. I can't tell you about all your life experiences. And but you think you can tell me about my life experiences. And this is why, it is very important to chat, because we may come from the same community, but we're still going to have, there's going to be different experiences there. So these people who consider themselves allies and don't listen, they know better. They're not allies.
Yeah.
They're not allies. They're not.
That's so true. It's so
They're
true.
Yeah.
Kim, yeah, I agree. Like allyship is a term
Yes.
that sadly has been a little bit diluted, over
Yes.
the years, and
Yes.
it kind of like lost a little bit the true meaning.
Oh my goodness.
And I can tell you, I can tell you all day about specific groups or charities or organizations or companies that are really willing to engage with us as ParaPride, as a community.
Yeah.
They're really open to engaging with us at very specific times of the year.
Yeah.
But then for any other time of the year where us to reaching out to them saying, hey, do you remember that conversation about this? How about we pick up on that?
Yes.
I am still waiting for answers from them, and I'm not going to mention names. I'm not going to say nothing. After we stop recording, then I'll tell you who they. But I'm not going to say nothing now. But it's not the one, it's not the twice. It really happens a lot.
Yeah.
So what you said there, Kim, is very true. Sadly, the true meaning of allyship, it kind of got a little bit lost in translation, and you're a bit dubious about people who approach you as allies, and you kind of think,
for me to recognize a true ally is someone who's not going to overstep, someone, like you said, who's going to be sympathetic, someone who's going to listen and try to understand. And if they want to really understand, you have to really want to understand. You will not, and I repeat this, you will not be afraid to ask those difficult questions if you want to really be an ally. I've been to a few functions, and it has been brought up about allies. And they have this new, I'm going to start doing this as well. They were saying that we should start looking at these allies as friends. You can be an ally, but you're a friend. And I think that really resonated with me, because when you have a friend, that's someone who you respect and you love and you understand or don't understand, but you're trying to understand. And a real friend is not going to overstep.
Yeah.
We're going to respect.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to do. But too many people, they can talk the talk. I've been to a few panels, and I'm just sit there and I'm like, wow. During, sadly, when, George Floyd passed away, how many people were out there marching? Black Lives Matter. They're all on, social media. That meant nothing. I've learned it meant nothing, because it was back to business as usual when all that was over.
Yeah.
And I don't know if people think we're stupid or something, but we see you. And people must always remember, well, let me tell you, my mom, I'm quoting again my mom as well. My mom always said something, and people have to remember this. if you really want to get to know someone, you have to listen to every word they say. Look into their eyes, and that will tell you exactly who they are.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You know, yeah, that resonates a lot. You know, and I was kind of thinking, you know, I agree a lot with but what you both have said, but what I might add to it, I guess just briefly is I think allies really need to understand sometimes that it's actually really challenging for us to maybe share some aspect of our diversity and intersectionality with you because of how much it's actually burned us in our lives. And you know, like not everyone is accepting, and even well-meaning people sometimes can cause challenges or raise up barriers in front of us. So like, you know, do really listen, and listen compassionately, as though you're talking to somebody who is just the same as you, but also has some great differences and some other experiences that you don't have. And, you know, I think that's one thing that maybe Danielle alluded to at the beginning of the call about, you know, we might be disabled, but we don't see ourselves as less able, or less part of the community, or less anything. So, you know, that's just, you know, one aspect of diversity in general. But, you know, it is about getting back to that place where we can be more human and really treat other people like they're human, and they are just like you, but they also have a few different things that they bring to the party, and they can be very positive, unique talents as well. So. So I think that for me, that's the best thing that allies can do, is to understand the vulnerability involved in being somebody who appears to be a bit different, or who kind of proves to be a bit different if they have an invisible disability or difference. But yeah, I mean, I think that point about compassion is probably the most important one to me, and really being human. Yeah, and
being
not hating.
human.
Yes, definitely.
Humanity.
Yeah. Well, I think, sorry, go ahead.
No, I can't, you know, I was just going to say, humanity can't be about one intersection.
Yeah.
It has to be about everybody.
Yeah.
You know, we as Homo sapiens should try to live a better life than we did yesterday. We should, you know, I always say one of the most precious gifts you can give yourself is to educate yourself. It's about life. It's sometimes a lot of times it can free your mind of negativity and biases and racism if, you know, you allow yourself to evolve.
Yeah, definitely.
But some people don't do it. And that's the problem with society. They need to have someone, for instance, like J.K. Rowling. You know, she does a lot of thinking for all these people. So, you know, all these false scenarios I hear about the trans people is just outrageous. And they actually believe it because they want to believe it as well.
Yeah, well, I think that whole like fake news aspect of our modern society is really problematic, but we could probably spend another hour talking about that. But I might wrap it up there and just say, you know, thank you everyone who has been listening throughout. We want to remind you that we will be posting content throughout Intersectionality Awareness Week about all the communities I talked about. I also want to thank our partners, Inclusion London and Trans in the City, as well, for joining us this year. And we have some amazing speakers and amazing content contributors. So there will be a variety of different forms of content, panels like this one that we recorded. We've got some live sessions, we've got some pre-recorded stuff, and we'll have some podcasts. So please do, you know, join us during Intersectionality Awareness Week. Again, that's the 12th through 18th of May. And we want you to be an ally. Like, it was interesting that we've ended on that point, because the whole objective of Intersectionality Awareness Week is to have a celebration of our communities, but also to make sure that our allies have an opportunity to better understand our experiences as well. So thank you very much for joining us, and we hope that you'll partake in some of our other content.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.